Testing. Is this thing on? So, I went a little bit crazy the last couple days. I feel like I had this revelation, this flash of insight. Well, everything in the game works, or did until I broke everything recently. I decided to go back and start restructuring things. I had this realization of how I should go about implementing a real entity component system. The way I went about putting things in, essentially taking, even though I'm working in C, I'm going to call it object-oriented. It essentially involved taking individual properties in the entity structure, class, whatever you want to call it. Taking each individual property and for each property, you first have to define a new component. Once you've defined the component, when you rebuild the game, the structure I'm calling the component table gets rebuilt in a way that accommodates the existence of a new component. Let's see, I should do a few things before I really get rolling here. It is about 5:30 Central Time here in Texas. Welcome to Evil Dojo. Hi, little dogo. She heard me talking. She woke up. So it involved taking this new component table once you rebuild it, every time you add a new component, right? And when you go to create the entity, you have to specify the components that the entity has, right? And I haven't thought about this till just now, but it should be possible that, let's say you have some components defined that you have not attached to an entity at creation. So you should be able to technically add components after an entity is created. So like you don't have to define the components all at entity creation, because the whole idea is that you should be able to arbitrarily attach components at any given point during the entity's life cycle, which would allow for you to do things like, for instance, create a hero, and then let's say you get attacked by an enemy who has some property that causes you to get poisoned. So when you attach poison, you can essentially attach it as a component to the entity itself, right? And if your systems are set up correctly so that you check to see if an entity has this component, in this case poison, then you handle that component appropriately, right? So like for every system, like for every property, there has to be like an associated subsystem that does something. And everything that I had written till now, hey Dulce, what's up? Oh man, were you the one who fucking told me to fuck with Aider? Was that you? Are you the one who told me to fuck with that bullshit? Because I did fuck with a bit of Aider, and I don't think I'm very happy with it. It's just not my cup of tea. I have a lot to say on why I think it's bad or why this is not the direction that we should be moving in, because, oh my gosh, I was getting quite upset with it, and for a number of different reasons. But I'll get to all that. So back to entities. So I was already kind of doing this with a lot of the systems. Like, individual systems that I was coming up with ended up becoming specific properties on the entities. And I've developed a pretty solid process for undoing this, or like rather converting a system from object oriented over into entity component. And so I'm kind of in the middle of doing that right now, right? Like I said, it's 5:30, so in a little bit I'm gonna have to take my dog outside so she go pee pee. I'm gonna have to get her some din din. I'm gonna probably order myself some pizza. No, Zeal, I'm talking to you. I'm talking to y'all. You people watching me right now. I'm telling you what I'm doing. Pay attention. Are you having a hard time hearing me? The DJ was too loud at first in my other stream. Gotcha. Yeah, no, one of the reasons I've been having my microphone raw dog with like no noise reduction is because the noise reduction gets in the way of me typing. I like y'all to be able to hear me type because I have a nice clicky keyboard. It sounds really cool, feels good to type on, and I like to think about the audio dynamics of like what it sounds like when y'all are actually watching me, and when people go back to rewatch the streams. And God help me, I've tried to get the fucking audio reduction, noise reduction shit to be like perfect in Linux, and I just can't hack it. RN noise is just not as good as whatever I got on Windows. I'm not willing to convert over to Windows just to make my streaming better. No, I peek back at her to check on her to see what she's doing, what's her current attention, where she's looking. Because she can hear me. She knows I'm talking to y'all. She knows I'm talking about her too. She's a very smart dog. Y'all want to say hi? Grace, you want to say hi to the internet? Come here. My new cat is behind me, hidden underneath that table. But this is Gracie. She is the love of my life. She was my grandma's dog. When my grandma passed away, actually just before she passed away, one of the last things that she told me or asked of me was that if anything were to happen to her, I'll take care of this little girl for her. I call her a little girl because, I mean, she is little. You know, she's big. She's small enough I can pick her up. But she's she's going to be 15 years old this year. As you could probably tell, she needs a little bit more haircut work. I've given her significant haircut reduction over the last few days. I'm giving her a couple days off, and because she gets really stressed out whenever I'm messing with that stuff. I also have to clip her nails because her nails are getting so long. And I could just take her to a place to get that done probably, but she hates car rides. Oh, Lordy. Yeah, life is a lot better when you got an animal or two. I've lived alone a number of times, and I sometimes think to myself, I should have got an animal a long time ago. But yeah, let's see, it's 5:37. We're just getting cooking here. I started talking about some of the changes that I'm making in my game in the code base. Title of the stream is Massive Code Overhaul, and for good reason, because I had a revelation about how I need to go about handling entities in order to make things more modular, so that it wasn't such a pain in the butt to go about creating new different types of entities. Let me go ahead and take her out real quick. But before I do, let me hook y'all up with some music.
Listening to Evil Dojo Dark Mage in the house with the sick flow. Listening to Evil Dojo Dark Mage in the house with the sick flow. Listening to Evil Dojo Dark Mage in the house with the sick flow. Hey! I need my motherfucking coffee! Ain't not a person in the world who can stop me! The corporate world is the devil, I am godly! If I got my coffee, I'm the motherfucking top beat! motherfucking coffee. Ain't not a person in the world who can stop me. The corporate world is the devil, I am godly. As long as I got my coffee, I am the motherfucking toppy. I need my motherfucking coffee. Ain't not a person in the world who can stop me. The corporate world is the devil, I am godly. As long as I got my coffee, I am the motherfucking zombie. I need my motherfucking coffee. Ain't not a person in the world who can stop me. The corporate world is the devil, I am godly. As long as I got my coffee, I am the motherfucking zombie. I need my motherfucking coffee. Ain't not a person in the world who can stop me. The corporate world is the devil, I am godly. As long as I got my coffee, I am the motherfucking zombie. I need my motherfucking coffee. Ain't not a person in the world who can stop me. The corporate world is the devil, I am godly. As long as I got my coffee, I am the motherfucking zombie. I need my motherfucking zombie. I need my motherfucking coffee. 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 Ain't not a person in the world who can stop me. The corporate world is the devil, I am godly. As long as I got my coffee, I'm the motherfucking zombie.
Hate to stop it in the middle of the track, but yeah, that's a good one. Hey. Get away. Come here. Come here. And this is my other one. Nano, say hi. Say hi to the internet. He's like, why are you keeping me from your dog's food? Because your food's on the way, buddy. He's got an automatic cat feeder that feeds him. Hey. You wanna get up? Get up on the desk. There you go. Move your tail away from a coffee cup, though. All right, let me pull chat back up. Start getting rolling here. Expensive prescription and Magic the Gathering arena. Nice. I was playing Arena for a little bit. It was one of the first games that I loaded up on Linux after building my new computer. But I decided to boycott based off of what I perceive to be a very bad user interface decision. Because while Magic the Gathering is great, and Arena's in general great, the deck editor sucks. Huge, floppy, fucking donkey dick. The deck editor in Magic the Gathering Arena is absolute dog shit trash. I got really mad about it when I realized like just how bad it is. Yeah, the deck editor sucks. Like, I would so love to play that game all the time if the deck editor didn't suck fucking dick. Just straight up. Like, one of the biggest immediate criticisms I can say about a specific part of the user experience and edit, like just about the deck editor in general, is the fact that you cannot use your arrow keys on your keyboard to navigate through pages or even individual cards. No, like I want to be able to fucking look at shit and manage my shit with my keyboard exclusively without having to use the mouse or anything like that. And you know that they didn't put any thought into this shit when they were making it, because they were really trying to spec it out more for mobile devices. Like, what we have on the computer was not a made for the computer experience. It's a port of a meta design that was attempting to target as many devices as possible. And I hate that shit. I hate that shit so much. I can't even begin to contain my rage thinking about this topic. It's fueling me up. This is good. My dog just finished eating. Um, like I figured Arena would actually be like so much better on a nice tablet, right? Like I tried it on the phone. The phone is just too small, and if you had like a good enough tablet with enough horsepower, like it could probably be a good experience. Like just being able to let just one hand fucking play the whole thing. I enjoyed Hearthstone on that level. But even then, yeah, like phone Hearthstone was like really fucking tiny, and back then I had a Nexus 6P, which was a huge phone. Like I've got a Pixel 6 right now, and it's like barely like I would probably want it to be just slightly smaller. It's usable, but it's kind of big for my hands. Um, but even then, the 6P was like way bigger than this phone, and even that was too small, right? Like, but you get yourself like an iPad or some shit, and then you're kind of cooking. The Kindle too. I have a Kindle 10 with a broken screen, and that could also possibly that would be a better option if it actually had some horsepower to it. But a lot of the graphics and stuff, a lot of the graphic requirements for a game like Magic the Gathering Arena are artificial. The same thing with Hearthstone. A lot of the graphics details goes into like aesthetics and nothing to do with actual gameplay. And that's kind of like one of the angles that I approached like the software and the game developer space with, is the premise that it's 2025 and we have all of this power, and we're using most of this power on visuals. But what happens if we attempt to really, you got automated? I'm looking at the restream chat, so I don't know what you said. I could take a look on the Twitch dashboard. I forgot what I was saying. I don't know what you said to get auto-modded. Well, like I said, so I've got both the restream chat up as well as the Twitch chat up now. So like normally it would show the windows for moving cards around are icky. Once I learned where the invisible was. Oh yeah. No, like a lot of what I've noticed to be glitchy user interface issues oftentimes are CPU lockups that occur. The letter AF, what weird. I wouldn't want like you should be able to say AF in my chat. I say AF all the fucking time. I'll see if I can get that fixed. Hi. Hey. Hey. My cat was about to jack my chair. He was about to do it. Not to mention Gracie's probably wanting me to get on the couch with her. It means I gotta set up the, or just like rotate the camera or some shit. And move the microphone, move my mouse. Move my keyboard. Okay, so I like the angle that I'm approaching this whole software game developer space in is all about this premise. It's 2025. All the power, all the CPU, all the GPU. Someone's fucking yelling outside. That's another benefit of raw microphone, is that you'll get to hear all of the lovely sounds that are happening around me. While I do have a nice apartment, I am surrounded by people on all sides. I guess that's where the cost savings come in. The unit's rather inexpensive for what little income I am making. And there's Nano's cat feeder. It would be cool if I had a way to like turn on my phone and walk around my apartment and have stuff show up on stream. Okay, so yeah, 2025, all this power, all this GPU is going towards graphics and visuals. All the big games, that's where it's at. But I'm curious how much we can do from a certain perspective. I'm sorry that you got an ad. That is what subscribing is for. It's also what YouTube's for, because there's a good chance that if you're watching on YouTube, you're watching without ads. Yeah. You're going to get ads on Twitch if you're not subscribed. Berlin roguelikes, 90% of the time. Most modern games suck. Amen to that. I fucking hear that. I'll have to look into Berlin roguelikes. One of my favorite roguelikes is this game called Sheeran. It's a series, actually. It's kind of like a fork of NetHack in a lot of ways. It's missing some of the features, but a lot of them are very similar. And the kind of game that I'm trying to make is going to end up being something in between, like NetHack and Sheeran. Because Sheeran, in a lot of ways, is like NetHack, but stripped down. Zeal, I want to thank you for watching all of those ads. Your support of my channel is greatly appreciated. All right. With that energy in mind, there's some family of kids walking through the corridor outside. But with that energy in mind, I have things to fix in the game since I started converting it over to an ECS system. Let me get back on the couch, honey. Mind if I work on my game for a little bit? Is that okay? Oh, I gotta take my medicine too. Dulce says, I've been getting deeper into my ECS system too, so much easier for me to work with logically. Well, I mean, that's definitely my goal too, and it's appearing like it's going to work out that way. Someone yesterday, or within the last couple of days too, was mentioning this concept called flow field. And after doing enough research on it, I determined that the A-star pathfinding that I implemented essentially does the same thing. So it's just kind of like two different ways to look at the same thing, or two different ways to do the same thing, whichever way you want to look at it. It is 6 p.m. Someone's screaming outside. Right, yeah. So, like for A star, one of the things that I talked about having to handle was situations where you could have like multiple entities coming down a hallway, and then you have your player at the end of the hallway. And currently, with the existing implementation, what would happen is the entities would essentially end up in a line, and instead of realizing this is getting kind of crazy. I don't know if I should go check on what's going on out there. I don't really want to get involved though. Yeah, Zeal, I am multi-streaming on both YouTube and Twitch. If you don't want to see ads and you have YouTube Premium, you could probably watch me over there. It was a little bit scary. Someone was screaming like, "Get out of the car, get out of the car." Grace, I'm gonna work on my game for a little bit, okay? Then I'm gonna order some pizza. I'll probably end up ordering it while I'm working. Just relax. Let's see, let me switch over. I'm on quite a while and I haven't done anything yet. Everything builds at the moment. But unfortunately, movement has broken. Oh, an attack. Yeah, I crashed the game when I attempt to attack. Nice. You want me to sit next to you? I can do that. Here, let me adjust my setup here. All right, we're good to go here. So we got several things we got to fix. I mean, the game renders, so that's nothing to take a stick at. Debug panel comes up, everything still goes. I've commented out a lot of things, but obviously I've missed a couple small details. So we're going to trace back through the existing functionality and rejigger things so that they work again. Because I'm not too far away. It's not like I've deleted a lot of code. It's not like I've changed that much realistically in terms of how things are operating underneath the hood, except I have restructured where certain things are. So start with movement. are a couple hints. I commented out a lot of the calls, and we've still got the function for movement defined, but we have to take a look at where the keyboard input is currently being handled. Right here. First, let me resize the window when we actually spawn the game. That way I can have the code and the game present. Okay, perfect. I need this for debugging. We have a simple system to translate keystrokes into actions, which are represented as strings. Oh, the thing's getting flooded. We need to comment out some of that stuff in libdraw. Libdraw 890 and 841. Uh, 308 and 278. Okay, now we can go back to liblogic and do, yeah, so it's like constantly printing out none, right? Okay, so as you can see by the printout, by my printf style debugging here, it's registering my input. It's great. And I got it to crash for another action. Let's deal with that first. 1448. Right, we're no longer using emget. Originally, everything was managed with the entity structure, and each entity was being held in something I was calling the entity map, or the entity manager, which was essentially a glorified hash table. Let me increase the size of the chat so I can read y'all. Okay, we got turning again. Good. Next. All right, we got movement. Okay, so far so good. Okay, so the attack code needs to be a bit more generalized. Essentially, like, if all of these other cases are calling execute action, I would want this case to also call execute action. However, because the attack action itself has no associated direction with it, the direction has to be figured out. Direction itself is a property, or it was a property on the hero or any other NPC, but now it's a component. So given the entity ID, we can return the direction using this function. First, we check to see if the entity even has the component. Component itself is a simple enum. Anytime we want to add a new component, we have to create a new enum first. Each value in this enum represents what used to be a property on the actual entity struct. As you can see, is damaged is now commented out. There was a lot of other stuff there too that I've gotten rid of already. But I have been piecemealing the conversion of this structure into something that's going to be ultimately wiped out. Because at the end of the day, we're going to end up having replaced entity and entity map entirely with this new component system. And we're not too far away from it now. There's still a handful of things I have to do. But in the process, once we get everything else working again, we're going to continue converting this over. I'm not going to finish it all today, obviously, but I'm going to see how long and, you know, all that good stuff I can actually keep working on it. Oh, so I guess I could also get deeper into how this all works. So this is the components table. It's very simple, but it's also set up to be very generic. What the component table actually represents is each column represents a different component or property on an entity. And while I'm storing integers here, realistically, I was trying to figure out how to get rid of or how to, like, you know, maybe use a smaller, we could do shorts, but at the end of the day, entity ID is an integer. So the very first value in a component row, we want to be the entity ID. So like that way each row is effectively all of the different possible components, as well as whether or not it doesn't have a component. So this has the potential to grow very big. But in the beginning, I'm gonna kind of limit it to, you know, 128. So we allocate the table, we set a default column value of count, which is the number of components that we are defining. The initial row count is 0 because we haven't added anything to it yet, and our default capacity is of course 128. Once we've created the space for the table, we allocate space for the underlying actual table. So there's like the wrapper, you know, that like the struct containing the table, and then there's the table itself. And of course we have our destroy function, we have an add entity function. So whenever we create a new entity, we're probably going to want to call this. And if there's a reason that we need to remove an entity, we can do that as well. So once we've added an entity to the component table, we can then add components to that entity. So if we wanted to say our entity has the ability to be dead, right? Or has the ability to be damaged, or has the ability to perform a normal attack, or has the ability to block, or has the ability to have block success, or has a direction, or has a location, or it uses my sprite smooth move system. If it has any of these things, like race, type, etc., if it has a name was the first one, if it has any of these properties, we can use this function to let the component table know that this entity has this property. Because the way I'm probably implementing this is probably bad, but it's working. So let's take the name component, right? The CT stands for component table. I also like the prefix CT because that's frequently what one of my favorite games of all time is referred to as. CT. If you're a real OG, you know what game I'm talking about. Shout out at me if you know what I'm talking about. I'm gonna turn the light on in here. And the good Lord said, "Let there be light." So name component, right? All it is a small data structure containing a name as well as the ID. every component I'm attaching the ID to just for paranoia's sake, but essentially each property that used to be on the entity structure, we're able to just pull out into its own component. And then this is probably the reason why people consider getting started with like a raw ECS system pretty complicated, because it kind of is. It's very different from OOP in this way, but it also results in a distribution of your properties into a more even space, which can be possibly a lot better for like rapid memory access. My game, I haven't noticed any real slowdown up until a certain point, which is good because I am trying to make things to scale. But I also had this vision of like how difficult it was going to be for me to implement items and weapons that are procedurally generated in a very easy and cohesive fashion. Because I'm already imagining, like, I'm probably gonna, for elements, like, have a component that's like on fire or like has fire property or something like that. So that way, if I go to create a sword, I can just attach that component to it, and then that way it becomes a flaming sword, right? And then that way it can like roll for chance of generating flaming sword, or like every additional property has like its own chance of, you know, being generated. So, but to get the original functionality, what I've had to do is for each property, pull it out of the entity structure, create its own component, and the process of creating the component goes like this. Step 1, add an enum. Step 2, create a component list and its associated count and capacity over in your struct. Shout out at me if you think this if this is insane what I'm doing here. Not the code itself, but the formatting. Anyway, yeah. So step 2, you do that. Step 3, you define the associated accessor methods, because with the way that I've built things, it's pretty straightforward to actually use. It might require a bit more code, but it also might, in the long run, be less code, right? So when we go to create our player, here's how I'm doing it. First, we get an entity ID to represent. Next, we register the components that the entity is going to be using. And actually, I think the way that I did this, it's totally doable that we can like add components later. So like, if I didn't want to do them all in one shot here, for instance, let's say I decided, oh, hey, you know, let's say, you know, I comment those out. Let's say I only did one to start with, right? And then I realized, oh crap, I actually need these other ones. So I thought what I did here was pretty clever. First of all, hi Zevis, long time no see. Glad to see you again. Secondly, that's never going to happen. I've tasted i3 and I like what they're doing, but it would have been nice if I had been as good at C as I am now in college and i3 was introduced to me when I was on Gentoo. Because back then I had the real customization level energy to dig into a lot of that shit, right? I'm getting old. I'm getting impatient. I like my setup. You have to have an appreciation for how much effort goes into making sure things work the way that you want them to. i3 is great. I like what they're doing. I don't necessarily need i3. The road to get from beginning in i3 to getting to a place where I would want to be is a long road. I've sat down and I've looked down that road and I thought, gosh, that's a long road to travel. Well, that's a good thing to mess with. If you're, of all the things to mess with me about, that's a good one. Because I got mad respect for i3 and what they're doing over there. The Primogen's been messing around with some interesting Windows stuff. Have y'all heard of something called Hyperland? Because there's a lot of stuff like that I'm just now learning about. That's just now coming into my periphery, and I like what I've got with XFCE4, but I also recognize that with the lack of Wayland support and all that stuff, they are potentially going to be falling behind the curve here pretty soon. I'm very thankful that the amount of fuckery that I've had to deal with in XFCE4 has been rather minimal in comparison to some of the other window managers. Like, there's a reason that I don't go back to Awesome, right? Awesome was cool. I like what Awesome was doing. And even now, with me being as involved in neovim and having dabbled into Lua a bit, you know, it would be a good time to kind of go back and explore that space. But I might be on it then. I'm not sure which version of XFCE4 I'm using. Suppose I'll have to double check on all of that. I might actually be on it now I think about it, because several months ago I attempted to, because, you know, like dealing with the ergonomic situation, I've explored a lot of different input devices trying to figure out what's going to be the most comfortable in the long term, and I got an Apple touchpad, one of those magic ones, thinking that I was on Ubuntu at the time, and I thought, oh, it was going to be way easy for, no wait, yeah, I was on Ubuntu briefly, and I was early enough in the computer install situation after I just built it that I was able to convert over to Debian rather easily. But I was thought, I was on Ubuntu. If I plug this magic trackpad in, all the gestures would just magically work. Fuck no. Whoever on Amazon reviews got that shit working on Ubuntu must have had an older version of it, because the Apple Trackpad 2 did not work out of the box on Linux with gesture support at all. All right, so the whole point I was getting at with this is that if I decided that I wanted to break this up into individual calls to register each component individually, I'm totally able to do that. In fact, there is a dedicated function for this. Oops. Yeah, we'll leave. looks like up here. Oops. You could register each component individually, or you could register a big list of them. And if you terminate the series of parameters with 0, you're good. Suppose I could do -1. But once you've registered your components, you can then add the specific values to them that you want. We technically don't have to add the booleans because they should be zeroed out to start with. Adding sprite moves kind of a formality. You definitely have to specify your location. By default, a lot of the entities that I create are going to be facing just right. Specify starter race as human. Entity type is player. Of course, we registered a name. And that's kind of the high and low level of components. But as I showed y'all earlier, we just got movement working again. But attacking is still broken. Um, 1018 in game state .c. Oh, it's probably because, yeah, I just commented those out. So actually, we do have to add these. Because registering, I thought this added a row for, no, this adds the rows in the component table, not the actual values to the component list. The component table is just a lookup that says, does this entity have this component? So it's supposed to return true, false when you look them up. And for each of the different add things and different accessors to the component lists, it's a good idea to check to see that the entity has the component first. And if it doesn't, then return some default false, invalid value. I'm gonna need some more coffee here in a bit, as well as order a fucking pizza or 2. Probably just 2. I tried 3 last time and I ended up straight up having to get rid of one of them, because those things do not last more than a couple days in the fridge. Okay, so attacking crashes. Let's trace this crash. LibLogic 530. Right, we're no longer using emget. We're no longer using entity pointers. Once the entities are fully converted over, in my head, I've been thinking, gosh, the way that a lot of people talk about entities, they sometimes talk about them from the perspective that not only can you have a player and all of your in-game characters entities, but also your music assets and other things. And I'm thinking, I wonder if there's, if it's worth rewiring a lot of my existing systems up to do the same thing as well. Update direction. Okay, so this is a function we're probably going to have to handle. Yeah. So what we're going to have to do here is change this to entity ID, attacker ID. And we're going to have to change it here, even though it currently doesn't support that. Next, we're going to have to go to this function, do the same thing over here. Next, we need to blocking is temporarily disabled. I'm going to change ID to target ID to be a bit more specific. Thank you, Nike. I appreciate that. I was about to have a rant earlier about my experience with this tool that the chatter Dulce introduced me to called Aider the other night. I tried it with multiple providers, both Claude and 3.7 Sonnet, as well as DeepSeek Chat. And in both cases, I was just not happy with the workflow and the ultimate, like, it was really interesting that, like, I might go back to it and play around with it some more, because I actually had successfully made changes and merged them into the main code tree for the game. But there were a lot of, for one, it attempted to do far too much in one shot, just straight up. Two, the interface, I probably need to be doing it in a separate terminal window, because something about how it's written doesn't play all that nicely in neovim as much as I'd like it to. But thirdly, it becomes very challenging to manage, because like before Aider makes changes, if you're in like a clean, no changes, commit most recent update of your code base, and then Aider makes changes, it'll actually commit those changes, and you have no real visual confirmation of this. It just does it. Like when I saw it dump out a ton of code the other day, I said, "This is kind of cool. Go ahead and merge those changes." I was confused because it had already done so. And this is why I was very happy that I created a test branch before I started. Now, it supposedly offers this easy ability to undo commits, but at the same time, it also becomes a question of just keeping track of how many commits it makes, because, like, if it dumps out all of these changes in one shot, and those changes suck, and you have to roll them back, you just wasted a ton of fucking tokens for no reason. I mean, turning off auto, I don't, but see, I think that's part of the appeal of wanting to use it to begin with, they'll say, is that, the whole dream is to fully automate this shit, right? But to fully automate it in a way where incremental effort yields similar output reward. And for a lot of the existing systems like Aider and Cursor and whatnot that attempt to fully do this, my experience has been that attempting to dump too much into the LLM gives worse results. However, the workflow that I've created, where I talk to the LLM, I introduce it individual functions, and I ask it to handle just those individual functions, it can kind of like get an idea of the whole code base without having the whole code base, while allowing you to like zone in on really the specific things that you're trying to do. Because especially in something like a game, there will be time for more experiments always, but I'll have to try that next time, Dulce. Like, I'll have to turn off auto commit, and that's a easy and reasonable enough switch that makes for a good user interface. Being able to go from having it automatically commit and being able to undo those commits to being able to look at the changes before they're committed. That's a quantum level enough user interface feature that I can appreciate. As I was saying earlier, I probably have to do Aider in like a tmux session or something like that in a separate like terminal window, because I tried to do it inside of neovim's terminal, and every so often whenever I'd switch back to other files and then hop back into Aider, like the cursor was like stuck on the line above it and not typing properly. Oh, we got a cat. Hello. Oh. Hey, buddy. You want to say hi to everyone on the internet? Yeah, like I could, but okay, so like I was saying, like I like the fact that you can add individual files, but at the same time, like one of the reasons that I like globbing just individual functions for my scripts to work with is that I can keep the token usage really low. And in order to accommodate the LLMs, one thing that I've had to do, or I've chosen to do, is in many cases Like, as an example, this whole function right here, it essentially, there's no line breaks, and I actually just learned about a vim keystroke that I didn't know about before, and figured out a good left-hand key map for it, and now I can do this. So I just copied that whole fucking block of code in less than a second, right? So that's actually YAP, but I have remapped it to CAC because that ends up being a very comfortable keystroke combo for me, right? Like, I just figured this out within the last 2 days. And that alone right there is significant enough of an upgrade for me to integrate that into my existing workflow. And now I can hop back and forth even faster, right? The big goal with Aider or something like that, like, a lot of people want to be able to just get something to build something out of nothing, right? When you're working with an existing code base, you want to have very specific problems that you want to solve, that you have a very targeted understanding as to what the next thing you have to do is. And as I've been building this game out, I've started to get an intuition for the order of operations whenever I want to build a new feature, right? And one of the first things I have to do before I even think about building stuff out is I have to load the graphics for whatever it is that I'm doing, right? If it's adding a new monster, if it's adding some new object that I'm going to have to define stuff for, if it's new tiles, if it's music, which I haven't added yet, I have to first get the game to load those assets so that they're available, right? Because there's some stuff that the LLM is just not going to be able to do for me. It doesn't know what asset that I want to actually introduce into the list or anything like that. That's all stuff I have to figure out. All right, let me step towards 6 of this thing. Oops. Oops. So I guess it might use a lot more tokens in the beginning. Well, in general, that's true across every LLM session I work with, and also by definition how they work. You have to kind of seed the conversation with a context, right? That's what the context window's for. This is why, it's very easy to just /add file. And I even built something like that into my own script. I don't use it that often, though, because I find that when I'm actually doing work and I want to have some LLM assistance, individual functions are pretty sufficient. And, I've also made an effort to, name things in a way that's low token count, because longer function names will use, obviously, longer tokens. So any efforts that you can make to reduce token count while still making it clear what something does is really a good idea. As an example of this, underscore is probably unnecessary. And I could probably even get away with doing TGT ID and then ATK ID, right? And then ATK successful, right? So like, it results in me having to make more changes in the moment. But when I ship this, if I ship this off to an LLM, it will use less tokens than it previously did. So we're not even doing anything with the attacker yet here, but oh, it didn't build. Line 554. Oh yeah, so the helper method now takes the attacker ID. Okay, attack works again. I've been experimenting giving a roadmap notes to the LLM to help it work with the overall project. Yeah, I had the LLM solve several bugs in the animation when I was getting shield blocking and stuff working initially. I've been using the chat prompt aspect a lot less in the last week or so. I've been still having a pretty good experience with Copilot. All right, I think this is a good checkpoint for today, or at least for streaming for right now, is I got to explain and show off the emerging entity component system. Yeah, see, I think that's the greatest aspect of the LLM situation, honestly, is when you're in the middle of working on something and you already know the thing that you're working on and you're just trying to do it a little bit faster. Because those speed gains are the gains that really matter. And I think that people attempting to shove too much work into the LLMs at any given moment ultimately hurts everybody and slows down not only your own development, but also just things in general. Bad outputs can poison your data, can poison other people's data. There's a lot to be said. I have been having a good time implementing this. And I'm trying, you know, like as an example here, let's take this function, right? Let's change attacker ID to ATK ID. And already we save ourselves probably a couple tokens on that, right? Let's change target X to TGT X. And let's change target Y to TGTY. Oh Lord, I gotta piss. You know what? This is a good time to sign off. Oh God, I gotta pee. This came out of nowhere. I want to thank y'all for joining. Until next time, peace.